Alright, so I know what you must be thinking. Is that a wild upload in the distance? Well, yes it is. I've been MIA for a few months, and while I could go into detail about the joys of full-time adulting and a brief flirtation with being unwell, I won't, so I shan't. What matters the most is that I'm back, mostly upright, semi-coherent, and ready to talk to you about Call of Duty Black Ops. Now, over the last few months between work, naps, and questioning my life choices, I've been quietly chipping away at my gaming backlog, organising lists, writing little reviews, and descending into the kind of spreadsheet madness only true gamer nerds can appreciate. And by the way, shout out to Backlog.com. If you've never used it, it's basically Letterboxd for games, but with fewer movie snobs and way more moments of panic when you realise how many RPGs you've started and never finished. So to ease back into the series without immediately bursting into flames, I figured I would dive into a game that's been in my replay backlog for so long it was starting to collect emotional dust. Released all the way back in 2010, Call of Duty Black Ops threw players head first into the Cold War. It took the world by storm with its explosive campaign, addictive multiplayer, and a zombies mode that became a late night obsession for an entire generation, which was accompanied with Cheetos, Red Bull, and LAN parties. Now, why was this game such a special experience? Aside from the multiplayer, which, let's be honest, is always a big selling point for Call of Duty, the story here was phenomenal. It is still easily one of my favourite Call of Duty campaigns to date. The Cold War setting, the tightly paced missions, the constant sense of paranoia which really runs meters up the clock. This whole package comes together like a perfectly scripted fever dream that you don't even know that you're in the middle of. Now, at the heart of our story is our quote-unquote hero, Alex Mason. Ever so slightly unhinged, deeply sleep-deprived, and all-around fun guy. Mason's fractured perspective is what drives this whole campaign, and I should mention that there will be heavy spoilers in this video, because when I say that you go on an adventure, oh, I mean it. Mason is at most times a human bag of soup. This is a man who is deeply confused and barely holding it together, which turns this entire experience into something so surreal and unstable. You're not just running and gunning through the story here, you're watching a man unravel in real time. The lines between mission and memory start to blur, and there is this constant tension that you know something just isn't right. This story opens up on a mission that takes place during the Bay of Pigs invasion, where Mason, alongside with his squad mates Woods and Bowman, are tasked with taking out Fidel Castro, only to find out that they've been had, and Mason ends up captured. Shipped off to the Soviet gulag of Vorkuta, things go from bad to worse for our boy, until he meets Victor Reznov, a familiar face from World at War. Reznov brings fire, purpose, and one hell of a prison break. Their bond is immediate, and as chaos erupts, you start to realize this is about much more than just escape. This mission cemented the bond between Mason and Reznov, a connection that was born from suffering and sealed by a shared hunger for vengeance. In the depths of Vorkuta, pain becomes purpose, and that purpose bound them tighter than loyalty ever could. Mason's escape from the gulag is a desperate bid for freedom, and just like that, Reznov leaves us as quick as he is introduced, leaving only Mason to escape. After the escape, Mason is thrown straight back into the Black Ops missions, teaming up with Woods, Bowman, and Hudson across Vietnam, Laos, and other Cold War hotspots. And before long, Mason is reunited with Reznov, who is very much still alive, and joins our squad in tracking down Dragovich. Together they press on deeper into this conspiracy, with Mason becoming increasingly obsessed with helping Reznov complete his mission of vengeance. But something isn't right. Mason's grip on reality is slipping. He is seeing numbers, hearing voices, experiencing fractured memories, and they're only getting louder and alarmingly more frequent. Like a radio turned to the wrong frequency that just won't shut off. Now, if you've played this entry, it's probably around this point that you're starting to notice that things are definitely not adding up. Mason and Hudson close in on the truth behind the numbers. Their journey takes them to a location called Rebirth Island to find a man called Steiner, one of the final names on Reznov's list of revenge. In a twisted turn, Steiner is killed, but not in the way anyone expected. This is where the game pulls the curtain back, revealing that Reznov had died all the way back in Vorkuta, and the Reznov Mason has been seeing this whole time was merely a hallucination that was implanted during Soviet brainwashing experiments. Turns out Mason wasn't just haunted, he was straight up programmed. The numbers, the voices, the unhinged obsession with revenge, all part of Dragovich's grand plan to turn Mason into a Cold War sleeper agent with bonus emotional damage. But through sheer willpower and probably an unhealthy amount of shouting, Mason breaks free from his brainwashing. In the final mission, he and Hudson storm a massive underwater Soviet base, because of course there's an underwater base, and Mason finally puts an end to Dragovich. One bullet, one very cathartic drowning, and just like that, mission over. Reznov's ghost, banished. Conspiracy, foiled. Mason's mental health, debatable. Now this story holds up just as well as it did 15 years ago, which is equal parts impressive and terrifying, depending on how your back feels today. And I'll tell you, it holds up because it nails something that a lot of shooters still fumble to this very day, which is identity. Black Ops wasn't just about flashy set pieces or big explosions, though it had those in spades. It had a focused psychological narrative that actually took risks. The Cold War setting gave it a unique flavour, mixing real-world paranoia with personal trauma, and it used its time-hopping structure to slowly peel back the layers of Mason's mind without ever feeling bloated, which is actually very hard to do, looking at you, Westworld. The pacing is tight, the missions, they're varied, and the characters actually matter. They're not just background noise shouting your name every 5 seconds. And thanks to strong performances and smart writing, the twist doesn't just land, it recontextualizes everything leading up to it in a way that rewards the player for paying attention. Even today, with all the flashy, overproduced shooters that we get, Black Ops still feels sharp, stylish, and narratively confident, like it knew exactly what it wanted to be and stuck the landing. The folks at Treyarch knew that this was going to be a big deal, and it was. While Call of Duty has always delivered on spectacle, Black Ops stood out because it gave its characters actual depth. Mason wasn't just a grunt with a gun. He was broken, unpredictable, and dangerously unstable. Woods has presence, attitude, and a real sense of loyalty. Hudson was a straight man with secrets, and Reznov, well, Reznov walked that line between legend and madness like he was born to it. It's not just about structure and writing, however. You need serious talent to back that up. Black Ops brought in a stacked voice cast that gave the story a real punch. Sam Worthington nails Mason's intensity, accent slips and all, while James C. Burns turns Woods into an instant icon with the pure gravel in his vocal performance. Ed Harris brings an icy authority as Hudson, and Gary Oldman devours every scene as Reznov, delivering war monologues like he's performing Shakespeare with an AK. It's top tier and it still holds up today. Actually, speaking of holding up, so does the look for the most part. While it's obviously showing its age in some areas, especially with the occasional stiff animation or texture that looks like it came straight out of a 2010 bargain bin, the overall presentation is still strong. The lighting, the cinematic framing, the gritty tone, it all holds up together surprisingly well. The character models, especially during the cutscenes, still carry weight and emotion, and the game's use of filters and visual distortion gives it a very distinct paranoid aesthetic that fits the story perfectly. It's not modern day ultra fidelity, but it's stylized enough to still look good without a full remaster. A huge part of me hopes that Black Ops never gets the remake treatment. The occasional rough edges are simply just a part of the charm. Now I want to take a quick moment to discuss the PC port, which surprisingly runs really smooth for its age. I did experience 2 crashes, however I had no cursed resolution bugs and no Windows 10 tantrums. I couldn't get controller support working, so whether that's a feature or a ghost from 2010 is anyone's guess. But that's okay for me because the mouse and keyboard felt like a natural way to play. Call of Duty has always nailed that crisp, satisfying gunplay, and back in 2010 it was basically the gold standard. Every headshot feels like a little dopamine trophy, and every weapon still hits with that clean, punchy precision that made the series a staple for sweaty PC fraggers everywhere. I'm glad that I was able to take this trip down memory lane, and I'll most likely be heading into Black Ops 2 sometime in the future, because nothing says sequel like replacing Cold War paranoia with exploding robots and angry iPads. However, for today, that is a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. I promise I won't vanish for another 6 months, unless of course a mysterious set of numbers tells me to. It's been an absolute blast diving back into the series, and I seriously appreciate all of your support, comments, and patience while I get myself back in the game. There is more to come soon. Stay tuned, stay safe, and keep your Reznovs real.